Good morning, everybody. I think you've heard me before. I've done a few presentations before. I'm a compliance auditor in Mossel Bay for IOPSA. And I actually started business management before I became a plumber, going way back as far as 1990. I completed my studies at Stellenbosch University Business School in 1992. And then I was always wondering, where am I going to apply this? How am I going to use this? And 28 years later, I'm using these skills that I acquired, and it's great for me to share what I've learned and how to apply it to the plumbing industry. When we look at compliance as a liability within a business, liability, we always think of financial liabilities, but compliance can be a liability in our plumbing business. To understand compliance, we've got to look at governance. And if you look at this ball, you'll see we've got policies, legal, law, and directly beneath on the right-hand side, we've got compliance. And this is just something I pulled off the internet, what governance is about, compliance. And if we think of the COVID-19, the rules of good governance apply now more than ever with COVID-19 and the way it's been managed. Good governance, because it's very important to have good governance when something's being managed. So what is governance in a plumbing company? Governance encompasses the system by which a plumbing company is controlled and operates, and the mechanisms by which it and its plumbers are held to account. So it's accountability. What would be good governance in the plumbing industry? Working in a controlled plumbing environment free of corruption, environment free of competition, environment with compliant products, and environment of compliant following consumers. And I'm quite sure you'll all agree, if we look at that, that is just a wish list. It would be perfect if everything worked like that. I think there's only a few things that we could control there, and most probably that would be the plumbing environment. We are controlling it by having industry bodies such as IOPSA and the PRB. Corruption will always be in the environment. If we just look at the latest state capture that we've had, competition, that is the kind of business we're in. There's always competition. Compliant products, yes, we could get there. That could be there if governance would stop the import of non-compliant products and the spread of non-compliant products. So there is a possibility thereof. Compliant following consumers, that would be difficult. Consumers will always be the enemy out there for the plumber. He would always try to make you not follow compliant ways. Why do plumbers use the phrase consumer is always right? They know how important their consumers are for their income. If the consumer is neglected, they become a liability to your income. So we always try to please the consumer. So some common examples of liabilities within the plumbing business is accounts payable to your suppliers, banks, interests, salaries, income taxes, mortgages, unemployment, workmen's compensation, short-term insurance cover, public liability cover. Manages the liability of compliance. Does it really manage? That's what we've got to make sure. What is public liability in South Africa? It covers damages that you are legally liable to pay relating to an incident at your premises or about your business. You can also be held liable for actions of any member, partner, director, principal, or employee representing your business. Why is public liability insurance important for a plumbing company? Amongst them, public liability insurance is one of the most significant. This insurance provides protection for your business in the event of your business activities resulting in the injury or death of a member of the public or causes damage to their property. Is public liability a legal requirement? Unlike employers' liability insurance, public liability insurance isn't a legal requirement in our country. That said, it's an important cover for a plumbing business that interacts with the public. After all, most businesses have some contact with customers, suppliers, or passers-by, meaning they're exposed to a degree of risk. So what's the difference between public liability and insurance and professional indemnity defective workmanship insurance? Public liability covers you against material damage to property and injury claims that result from negligence on behalf of you or one of your employees. If a third party experiences property damage or bodily injury as a result of your business activities, public liability insurance will help cover the costs of the claim as well as court and legal fees. Professional indemnity insurance, on the other hand, has traditionally covered intangibles such as financial loss due to faulty design, poor advice, or unintentional copyright infringement. Professional indemnity insurance covers your legal defense fees and the cost of compensation you may owe due to damages. So much like a public liability policy, professional indemnity insurance, it will not cover any claim arising from defective workmanship, including defective physical construction work, erection, installation, repair, or service, defective products, or any defective materials, workmanship, or production techniques used. So that's a lot of confusion. So what is it about? Compliance is your protection. Protect your business by being compliant. How to protect it? It is essential for the plumber to communicate effectively, not only verbally, but in written communication. The written communication is key. You cannot protect it with yourself with he said, she said, and but. The plumber's main area of written communication is a small works contract, terms and conditions, emails, letters, and WhatsApp messaging. A lot of people do business via WhatsApp message, quoting even. Plumbing certificate of compliance. What does a typical non-plumbing company do to be compliant? If just a normal, some electrical company or whatever, or a big major company, it appoints a compliance officer to make sure that the company complies. An individual who ensures that a company complies with its outside regulatory and legal requirements, as well as its internal policies and bylaws. Compliance officers have a duty to the employer to work with management and staff to identify and manage regulatory risk. And now we'll see, how does this apply to a plumbing company, and who is the compliance officer in a plumbing company? Who or what is the plumber's compliance officer? The PRB Plumbing Certificate of Compliance is our compliance officer. It's a legally binding document and a part of our written communication. If done correctly, it's the best protection a plumber and his or her company has ever had. If done incorrectly, it could incriminate you as you have signed that all work complies to the set standards and was done by you under your supervision. So understanding compliance, that's very important. If you look at, there's a lot of words around it, and you'll see the words risk, rules, regulations, policy, standards, governance. Once again, you can pull this off the internet and you'll see, no matter what you're managing, what company you're managing, these rules are exactly the same for all companies and the same for plumbing company. So let's look at what laws govern compliance in plumbing industry. Water Services Act, Consumer Protection Act, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Those are the three acts that govern the compliance within a plumbing company. Then we have regulations on the left-hand side, bottom. The National Building Regulation, SANS 10400 Part P, being drainage, municipal bylaws, the regulations where you work in the industry. SANS 10252 Part 1, water and drainage Part 2. And then you have your mandatory installation standards. And those make up compliance within the plumbing industry. So if we look at this picture, that is something, the worst nightmare a plumber can have the next morning when he has his first phone call and he gets this picture on a WhatsApp message. This is what my roof looks like. You installed the geyser last night. This is what happened. So how is this going to be rectified? How can you protect yourself against that? Once again, compliance. How is compliance certified? By completing a certificate of compliance from the professional body for plumbing, which is the PRB. Why do we do this? It manages the risks and the responsibility. Remember, we looked at earlier and we said a compliance officer in a company, he manages the risks and the responsibilities. So how does a COC do this? By detailing the record of work that is done and reporting on any non-compliances and a record keeping of the non-compliances. So obviously we work in an environment where there is already installations and then in an environment where there's new installations. So in a new installation, you will have no non-compliances. And in a existing installation, there might be pre-existing non-compliances. So once you've reported on that, you've completed this, you've managed the risks and the responsibilities. So how would the risks and responsibilities have been managed? Let's have a look at it. PRB COC is completed. You have completed the details of the installation, very important. The plumber's responsibility and risk still, once the details are in there. And then you go and you have used approved products installed to the manufacturer specification. The plumber is now sharing the responsibility with the manufacturer and the risk. And if he's done the installation according to the same standard, the manufacturer becomes responsible for the risk and the warranty. No non-compliance listed, the local authority then has to be responsible if there is no non-compliance is listed. The consumer becomes responsible eventually, because if the local authority has issued the occupation certificate and you've listed that there is no non-compliances, then the consumer becomes responsible. And then your duty is done. Then you've covered all your risks, you've insured it, you've documented it, and it is recorded. How would the risk and responsibilities have been managed? At the end, you can see the occupation certificate and the local authority becomes involved, and the plumber is now released from the risk and the responsibilities. But only if he has done the details of the installation. He's used approved products, he's installed it according to the manufacturer's specification and according to the specific SAN standard. Then the manufacturer has a warranty responsibility, and that's all. So once again, if you go and look at compliance on the internet and you ask for images, you'll find this standards, regulations, policies, which we don't really work with, law and rules. Another image, compliance, standards, regulations, law. So these are the things that govern compliance: regulations, law, and standards. The plumbing compliance auditor, he is responsible for ensuring that a plumber within a company is adhering to all laws, regulations, and standards relevant to its technical side of the plumbing business, in particular the installation which was certified with a COC. So the plumbing compliance auditor is actually like a compliance officer in your company. So it's actually welcome to have an audit in your company. So first of all, you receive training, the minimizing of the risk of the plumbing company in terms of compliance, because if there are any risks, it will be shown out in an audit, and the auditor will request a rectification of that non-compliance. Track record of the performance and improvements, and transparency for the consumer. And once this COC is logged, there's a record of decision. Everything that was done, the photos are logged. And that is why it's very important when you do the COC, is to log the photos, put photos with it, because that's your record and nothing can change that. And then you have proof of what you did and that you've done it compliantly. So what about the sale of property? If sale of property is becoming more relevant, people are requesting a certificate of compliance for the sale of a property. But currently, our certificate of compliance is not designed for that purpose. City of Cape Town has got the Schedule 4, it says Certificate of Compliance of Water Installation on Transfer of Ownership in accordance with the Water Bylaw. So this is within their Water Bylaw. And then they have this plumber's checklist. The hot water cylinder installation compliance with 10252. You can tick the box. The water meter registers when the tap is open. You tick the box, and there you have no stormwater discharge, tick the box. But that's only ticking the boxes. It doesn't actually allow anywhere to write any non-compliances or that it's being rectified or whatever the case may be. So if there's a cross in the installation, I don't know what they do. Do they ask the owner to rectify it? How do they certify that it's been done completely, corrected again? So within your plumbing certificate of compliance, you have in number 3 there, the installation details, and you have the pre-existing non-compliances in part 4. And once you log it, you can go and log all the details pertaining to it. But now, once again, I said it's not applicable for the sale of a property. So currently they are looking into designing something, so how and what to do when the sale of a property is requesting a certificate of compliance. IOPSA has got a home inspection list, which is an option. So it will go, it's also a tick box. You go through all the relevant bathrooms, kitchen, sinks, and laundries. You tick the boxes. And once that is done, you can give it to the owner, and the owner can then decide, okay, well, I'd like to rectify the following. And then once this is done, you can then rectify it, or other company can rectify it. And that once that work is done, you can then issue a certificate of compliance from the PRB. Also, another option is a home inspection. This can be used, and that inspection can be followed by a written report. And then in this written report, you refer to the standards, stating what is wrong and what is correct. A written report could also be requested after a plumbing failure by a consumer or the insurance company. This service could then be an expansion in your company's capabilities. But once again, if you are starting with this, you must make very sure that you are aware of the SAN standards and have a good working knowledge thereof. A technical report is there to explain or give feedback on the situation, and in the case of a plumber, normally done after an inspection of a plumbing installation or a request pertaining to a certain occurrence. Skill is a requirement once again. What skills are involved with writing a technical report? You must have a good working knowledge of the SAN standards, must have good writing skills, be factually and technically correct. If legalities are involved, ensure you obtain the skill or assistance of a legal expert. So yes, if you want to expand into this, make sure that you are up to doing it according to these standards, and that you have the correct skills to do it factually and technically correct. Once a report is delivered for a plumbing inspection of a property for the purpose of a sale, the non-compliant issues could be corrected, and then a COC for the corrected item should be issued by the plumber making the corrections. As the technology develops, the environment in which the plumber and the plumbing company finds him or herself becomes ever more challenging in terms of public liability, occupational health and safety, and standards. Therefore, protect yourself and your company in the consumer environment, as it will eat you alive. Keep proper records. The job was not done until the paperwork is done correctly. Then only you can complete the circle of compliance in the business and not a liability. Once you have completed this certificate of compliance, you are self-certifying that the work is correct. So this is a very important part of your business, is that when you certify something, ensure that you have done it correctly. Otherwise, it can become a liability. So my final question to you, in the plumber and the plumbing company owner, is, are you going to wait until you have a public liability claim against the company before you get systems in place to protect yourself in the consumer environment? What is stopping you from getting your written communication up to standard to protect you and the company against public liability? So I invite you to join in every Monday morning for Business 101 at 7 a.m. presented by OPSA for more information, making you and your business more professional and protected against consumer claims. That's it for this morning.